After the speech, there was a robust exchange between Prime Minister Lee and Leader of the Opposition, Pritam Singh, who questioned points raised about the national reserves and how the opposition campaigned during the last general election. In his speech, Mr. Lee had called out the Workers' Party's campaign tactic of assuring voters that the PAP would form the government. He also had criticised the opposition's stance on wanting to know how much was in the reserves, calling it a wrong approach.
I have a few clarifications, and I'll start with the first one. The framing of suggestions that the opposition puts forward about the use of the reserves. And I think it's important. When we talk about the reserves, we're not talking about raiding them. It's about slowing the growth slope of the reserves. So the principle is not touched. So the argument cannot be that when the opposition tries to put that proposal forward, somehow we are engaging in some sort of chicanery to steal what previous generations have toiled and perspired over to bring us here. The second clarification deals with the anecdote the Prime Minister shared about a lady who spoke to Senior Minister Teo, and that choice, the difficult choice she had to make about I can vote the PAP, so there'll be enough people voting for the PAP, they will be the government, but there are also people who are saying 2 for 1. This is an old issue, it's come up before in previous elections. And so when they say, I want the PAP in government, but I also want an opposition, they are giving voice to the situation many Singaporeans actually feel, which is, we want an opposition in this house. There must be an opposition in this house. So my duty and the duty of my colleagues is to be responsible about our roles. Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, our first Prime Minister himself, says this, and I quote, "At the end of the day, if you're running the system properly, you must have a distinction between what is the party, what is the government. So if you're voted out of office, the machinery is there for the next party to take over." So although we do not have much of an opposition, we keep the system going so that at any time the party is out, the government, parliament, the civil service will be there. The police, the armed forces will carry it through. It is not going to collapse, unquote. Sir, Mr. Speaker, sir, when my colleagues and I joined the opposition cause, we didn't have heady dreams of becoming government. It's certainly not me.
I thank the Leader of the Opposition. On reserves, I'm going on a basic principle that our mindset should be, what is a rainy day fund, what is my daily expenses, and I meet my needs. We do draw from the rainy day fund a certain stream of income to spend. We thought this over carefully, we debated this in the House, we agreed upon a rule which we felt was a fair distribution between the present and the future generations, which is that of the expected earnings, half will be taken to be spent, half will go back and be reinvested and will be for the future. We made that decision knowing that there would be ups and downs, knowing that one day we would be short of money, knowing that we should stick to this for quite a long time and not revisit this as soon as we need money. On Monday, when Mr. Singh spoke about trade-offs and difficulties, he said, yes, he knows that there's more spending which is necessary, that old folks, there will be trade-offs, and we can raise income taxes. He didn't say GST, but he's prepared to raise income taxes. Well, these are political judgments which you have to make, but finally you have to be able to spend what you are able to earn. And I suggest that our fundamental mindset should be, we pay our way forward, and we do not depend on another little bit from the reserves, another little bit from the reserves, another little bit from the reserves. Each time, I'm not really compromising a principle, I'm just getting a little bit more pregnant. And it is not, I suggest, that is not the way we should think as a generation. We should be thinking for the future. Now, on SMTO's anecdote and Mr. Pritam Singh's arguments, his arguments do not respond to the anecdote, because the basic point is this: whatever happens, there will be opposition MPs elected into this House. It's assured by our Constitution. So if you think the government is doing the wrong thing in terms of MPs' offices, in terms of the MPs and the community centres, by all means vote the government out, put a new government in, change the government, change the policy. But if you say vote against the government because somebody else will look after getting the PAP government, and you just become a free rider and you vote opposition, no harm, the PAP will still be there, then I think the system must fail. Because the system can only work if people vote sincerely, honestly, in accordance with what they really want, and to produce a result which matches their true intentions. And if they vote tactically, the consequence must be one day they will get the result which they marked the X for, but which they did not intend. And I think that's a wrong thing to teach people to do. I can understand why Mr. Singh, as leader of the opposition and not in a position yet to challenge the government, would like to make this argument that the government PAP will be there, don't worry, you can safely vote for me, I'm not going to be the next PM. But I put it to you that that is not the right thing to do morally, and is not the right thing to do for Singapore. Now, thirdly, on the system still running, he quoted Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, and indeed we have designed it to the best of our ability so that if the PAP is out of government, it shall not collapse straight away. But let me just ask you whether you really believe that if this team, if the PAP one day hands over to a new opposition party, the system can work the way it has been working?
The debate didn't end there. For the 20 minutes or so, it drew further responses from Prime Minister Lee and Mr. Singh. A Progress Singapore Party's NCMP, Loong also weighed in, and so did Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat. You can catch more of what they said online at cna.asia or on CNA's YouTube channel.